Rhaegar Targaryen felt the river's chill before the dawn's first light kissed its pewter-gray surface. He stood alone upon the muddy bank where a thin mist coiled like restless spirits, cloak wafting behind him in the breeze that carried the faintest trace of blood and damp iron. The ruby ford lay silent now, its stones slick with the long night's dew, yet marked forever by the struggle that had raged only hours earlier. Rubies, his rubies, glimmered faintly beneath the current, strewn like a dragon's scattered hoard. Some were lodged between reeds, some already lost to the river's slow, hungry pull toward the sea. He let them go. They had served their purpose. He felt light, almost insubstantial, as though the armor that had weighed upon his shoulders for years, his father's madness, his own hinted prophecies, the whispers in corridors, had at last been slipped free. Around him the camp stirred. Armored men awakening stiff and sore, maesters tending to the wounded, the groans of horses, the clatter of cook-fires coaxed back to life. Victory, an unfamiliar melody, thrummed beneath every word spoken. Yet in their triumph, the men looked to him now with the unguarded wonder-children reserved for heroes of song. He understood that look too well, for he had worn it himself when first he dreamt the dragon must have 3 heads. Frightened him. Footfalls squelched up the bank behind him. Ser Arthur Dane appeared at his shoulder, pale lavender eyes taking in the prince's thoughtful stance without question. The sword of the morning moved with habitual grace even beneath the weight of fresh-cleaned plate. Dawn rested sheathed upon his back, brilliant hilt wrapped for the march to come. "We ride within the hour," Arthur murmured. "Lord Cannington has the vanguard marshaled. Lord Mouton offers fresh mounts from Maidenpool stables." Rhaegar did not glance at him. His gaze drifted upriver toward the north. Somewhere along those mist-shrouded valleys, Robert Baratheon's body lay entombed beneath a cairn of hastily piled stones. That final hammerstroke, Arthur's or his own, no longer mattered. The rebellion's heart had stopped beating upon the Trident, and with it the path ahead opened as surely as the King's Road itself. "Tell Jon I will address the captains before we march," he said, his voice quiet. "Order every banner of the Stormlands collected. I will return them to their houses myself in peace." Arthur inclined his head. "As you command. The men will be pleased to hear you." "The men must hear more than pleasure," Rhaegar said. "They must hear purpose. And mercy." At last he turned, meeting his friend's steady gaze. "If we are to cleanse the wounds this war has wrought, we cannot simply claim victory and crown. We must weave the realm whole again." Arthur studied him a heartbeat. "The realm will follow you, my prince. They saw you win the dawn. They will see you light the way forward." Rhaegar smiled, faint as flickering torchlight. "So we pray." He watched Arthur stride back toward the tents, silver-white cloak catching the wind. The morning grew brighter, streaks of rose and gold bleeding across the sky like fresh paint upon old stone. He closed his eyes and breathed deep, scenting earth, river, and distant smoke from the dying embers of war. Lyanna's face rose in memory. Dark hair plastered to fevered skin, eyes blazing defiance even from the bed of flowers at the Tower of Joy. Save her, the gods seemed to whisper still. All of this, his flight, the song of rubies, the toll in lives, felt bound inexorably to the promise he had made to her and to something older than either of them. Yet promises were debts, and debts demanded payment. He opened his eyes. A silent oath formed upon lips that had once sung of summer snows and the last dragon. "I will end this turmoil," he vowed, "and I will see you safe, whatever the cost." By late morning, the prince's host rode south, thousands of hooves drumming a steady cadence over damp earth. Rhaegar led atop a white courser, armor lacquered black save for the 7-pointed star of rubies upon his breastplate. The sigil gleamed crimson beneath a bashful sun, and each flash of light struck fear or hope in equal measure among those who watched his progress from hedges and broken farm walls. At Maidenpool, they halted only long enough to pay for stores and salute the small folk who lined the crooked streets cheering his name. From a balcony draped in moth-eaten velvets, Lady Mouton herself bowed so low her gray hair swept the rail. Rhaegar dismounted and clasped her age-speckled hands. "The realm owes you gratitude," he said, voice carrying across the square. "Maidenpool stood loyal even in the darkest hour. Know that your faith is not forgotten." Tears filmed the lady's eyes as she curtsied. Murmurs, orisons, prayers rippled through the gathered crowd. Rhaegar's knights exchanged looks of quiet satisfaction. From such seeds, loyalty could take root again. The column pressed onward, skirts of the Kingswood shifting in summer breeze, thrushes startled into song by the rolling thunder of passage. Scouts reported small bands of rebels melting away into forest hollows, most discarding arms rather than face the oncoming dragon. Rhaegar ordered none pursued. Let them return to their homes. Let them tell their kin the war is ending. He rode often with Lord John Connington, once exiled hand, now restored to command. They spoke of supply trains, river crossings, garrisons needed along the Rose Road. Yet at dusk, when fires crackled in the clearings, conversation slipped into softer matters. The fate of Robert's bastard brother Renly, the siege at Storm's End where Stannis yet clung behind grim walls, whispering of cannibals' rations. Rhaegar listened but withheld judgment. In time, he would decide every prisoner's fate, but not before understanding the tapestry of wounds beneath. When the first spires of King's Landing pierced the horizon, dusk painted the sky a bruised violet. Smoke curled above the city as always, hearth fires, tanners' pits, the ceaseless forge of life within walls that had endured 3 centuries of Targaryen rule. Yet now the pinnacles of the Red Keep gleamed like a dragon's claws catching the last embers of day. Rhaegar stared, heart stuttering. Within those stones his father sat the Iron Throne, mind tangled in shadows and wildfire. What welcome awaited son returned victorious? What madness might flare when confronted with destiny's divergence? He gave orders. The host would encamp beyond the Mud Gate until sunrise. Only the Kingsguard and a small honor guard would accompany him inside. No banners raised in triumph, no brass horns proclaiming conquest. Prince came home. Sleep eluded him that night beneath canvas. He sat cross-legged upon a simple pallet, Elia Martell's last letter unfolded in his lap. Inked words blurred as he traced them by lamplight. My son and stars of Westeros, her playful inversion of Dornish endearments. I understand the storms that drive you. Follow them if you must, but remember the gentle hush that comes after the thunder. Our children need their father whole. So do I. He pressed the parchment to his chest, eyes closed until footsteps rustled outside. Ser Barristan Selmy entered, visor tucked beneath one arm. My prince, the hour approaches. Rhaegar rose, letter folded into an inner sleeve. Have the others gathered? All 7 ride with you, and Lord Stark. Rhaegar's brow furrowed. Eddard came. He arrived at dawn with a small retinue. He begs audience, says it is urgent. News of Lyanna, surely. His pulse quickened with hope and dread entwined. Show him to my pavilion. When the tent flap lifted again, Eddard Stark stepped into the lamplight. His gray cloak, torn at the hem, yet bore no stains of defeat, only the dust of hard riding. Eyes like cold mists took measure of the prince with unflinching candor. Your Grace, Eddard said, voice rough. Rhaegar inclined his head. I wear no crown yet, Lord Stark. Soon enough. The Northman's gaze flicked toward the ruby star upon Rhaegar's chest. The realm will accept your victory, but Lyanna, Rhaegar's breath hitched. She lives. She does. Relief washed through him, heady as strong wine. But she is weak. The maesters say her babe may come early from the fright of all this war. She asks for you, a child, his child. The prophecy's final note yet unsung. He felt the world tilt. We ride at once, he said. No, Eddard answered, surprising with its steel. Your father sits the throne. The city is a tinderbox steeped in wildfire. If you appear unannounced, his paranoia may see us all burn. We must plan. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. I will not leave Lyanna in that tower another day, and I will not watch thousands die because 2 men loved a woman more than their honor. The words hung, heavy as frost. Eddard's face showed not anger, only an exhausted plea. Meet your father first, calm the waters, then reclaim your bride. Rhaegar's gaze fell to the dirt floor. Honor, love, prophecy, each a chain pulling different directions. He thought of Arthur waiting outside, of Barristan's measured counsel, of Elia's letter folded close to his heart. Decisions forged kingdoms, or destroyed them. At dawn we present ourselves, he decided. You will accompany me. Your witness may steady the king. Eddard nodded once, satisfied, though worry shadowed his eyes. Sunrise broke upon King's Landing with a wash of rose gold that painted the domes of the September of Baelor and set the city's river of slate rooftops ablaze in color. The party entered through the King's Gate, unheralded but unimpeded. Small folk parted like reeds before a swan, murmuring at the gleam of white cloaks and the sight of Rhaegar's solemn visage. A woman selling lark pies whispered, "Dragon Prince," as though invoking a saint. Children scampered after the horses until guards waved them back. Within the red keep's towering gates, shadows lengthened beneath walls older than memory. Knights of the household guard fell to one knee as the prince passed, though eyes darted with uncertainty. The throne room doors loomed ahead, tall, carved with the sigils of conquered kings. Iron hinges groaned as they swung wide. Aerys II Targaryen sat hunched upon the iron throne, unshorn beard streaked with gray, nails black, a wild fire in his once violet eyes. He wore robes of midnight velvet crusted in emeralds that hung loose against a frame gone gaunt. The pyromancers Munceter and Bellies stood at either flank like gaudy gargoyles in green-flamed cloaks. The king's gaze fixed upon his son as the great doors boomed shut behind the party. "So the prodigal returns," Aerys rasped, voice echoing off vaulting stone, "and brings wolves and traitors within my walls." Rhaegar stepped forward alone, helm tucked beneath his arm. He bowed low, but not so low as to prostrate. "I return with peace, father. The rebellion is broken. The realm cries for the dragon to heal it." Aerys laughed, a jagged, broken sound. "Peace? They howled for my death. They stormed my gates, schemed with Tywin to deliver my head. Yet you would grant them mercy? The realm is ours to shepherd, not scourge," Rhaegar replied. "Let us govern justly. Crown me your hand, and together, crown you." Aerys' spittle flew. "You would place my crown upon your own brow. I see the hunger in you, boy, you conspirator. You turned from your king when he needed you most and courted prophecy, while I held the line alone." Behind Rhaegar, Ser Gerald Hightower's hand drifted to sword hilt. Arthur's eyes narrowed. Aerys rose, robes slithering. "I know your schemes. Even now the wildfire waits beneath this city, ready to purge treason with holy green flame." His gaze flicked to Eddard Stark. "The wolf stinks of death. Did you bring me his head? No, you stand with him, with them, and you would dare wag a tongue of peace. Father, please, silence." The shout rang shrill. "Guards, seize these men." For a breadth of a breath nothing happened, as though time itself paused. Then Ser Jaime Lannister moved, golden lion of the guard, stepping between king and prince, sword half-drawn but hesitant. Aerys recoiled, eyes widening at betrayal's glimmer in bright steel. "Even you, Kingslayer?" Jaime's knuckles whitened. "Your grace, listen." Rhaegar's heart pounded. He saw pyromancer Bellies touch a flask at his belt, felt the tension ignite. One wrong word and wildfire would bloom. He lifted a hand. "All blades sheathed," he commanded, calm as snowfall. His knights obeyed immediately. Jaime's sword slid back with a hiss. Guards along the walls hesitated, drawn between oaths old and new. Rhaegar dropped to one knee, helm set aside, bare hands outstretched. "I am your son, blood of your blood. If doubt poisons your mind, let me prove my fealty with a son's pledge." He raised his voice for all to hear. "I will lay aside claim, bend my head, and ask only to serve, if you will name a council to judge my loyalty, comprised of those you trust and those the realm trusts. Let truth decide." A hush swallowed the hall. Even Aerys seemed momentarily adrift, uncertain how to counter a surrender so public and absolute. His mouth worked soundlessly. Sir Carlton Chelstead, master of coin, stepped from the shadows, gaunt face creased with fear. Your Grace, the coin vaults run empty. The granaries of the crownlands are burned. We need unity or there will be riots. Murmurs from other counselors, some fearful, some emboldened. Ares' glare flicked among them, tallying doubts like debts. Finally, he sank back upon the throne's twisted blades. A council, then. Let the realm weigh the prince's sins. He spat. But know this, Rhaegar. I do not forget betrayal. The words ended proceedings. Rhaegar rose, silence settling like dust. Outside, Eddard caught his elbow. Your gamble may yet cost us. It bought us hours, Rhaegar murmured, and hours may save a city. Council sessions convened in the Half-Moon Hall over 3 tense days. Lords summoned from the camps and the city swore to judge fairly. Yet every witness called only reopened scabs. Brandon Stark's death, Ricard's burning, Elia's forsaken bed, Lyanna's disappearance. Rhaegar answered each charge with measured truths, sparing no shame, confessing his love for Lyanna yet insisting no rape, no abduction, only choice. Lord Owen Merryweather wept at the telling. Grand Maester Pycelle coughed behind his sleeve of scented oils. Varys the spider watched through lidless half-smiles. The lords listened, murmured, weighed. Meanwhile, rumors spread of wildfire caches placed beneath the September, the flea bottom, the dragon pit itself. Fear thickened like summer humidity as refugees flooded the streets seeking bread and certainty. Rhaegar, riding incognito, distributed grain from royal stores, spoke with cobblers, smiths, harlot mothers. He listened. Hope flickered behind wary eyes wherever he stopped. A prince who walked among them seemed a thing of legend. On the 4th dawn, a storm gathered over Blackwater Bay, sky the color of lead. The council at last delivered its findings to the Iron Throne. Lord Cannington read aloud. Prince Rhaegar is absolved of treason. He acted in protection of crown and realm against rebellion fostered by misrule and misunderstanding. He shall be named protector of the realm, heir apparent, and hand to his grace Ares too. Upon the king's passing, he shall inherit the Iron Throne. Immediate steps shall be taken to reconcile with houses who bent the knee. Gasps rippled. Pyromancers exchanged furtive glances. Ares sat slouched, lips twitching. For a moment Rhaegar thought madness resigned. But then the king threw back his head and laughed, high and piercing. Protector? Nay. He rose, arms outstretched. Burn them all. Bellies hurled his flask. It shattered upon the marble, green tongues erupting with a roar. Fire leapt up pillars, licked tapestries. Lords scrambled. Guards shouted. The scent of molten flesh filled the air. Jaime Lannister moved as though lightning incarnate, sword flashing. Bellies fell, his throat sprang scarlet. Munsiter screamed and reached for another flask. Arthur Dayne's throwing dagger struck his chest. Wildfire spilled but sputtered harmlessly against quenched stone. Chaos reigned. Amid screams, Rhaegar sprang toward the throne steps. Ares stood, eyes wide, shrieking. The dragon will burn. All traitors. He drew a dagger from within his sleeve, movement erratic. Rhaegar's heart clenched. Father. But there was no time for filial piety. He dashed up the steps, seizing the king's wrist, prying blade free. Let go. Ares clawed at him, thin fingers raking across polished plate. I am the dragon. You are my father, Rhaegar whispered, tears stinging. And you are unwell. He held Ares' frail body until the old man collapsed sobbing in his arms. In the hall below, fire sputtered under control. Guards beat smoldering drapes. Smoke curled upward, carrying with it the last echoes of a rain gone to ash. That night, a bedraggled small council gathered in Maegor's holdfast. Jaime Lannister, stained with blood yet uninjured, knelt before the prince. I stood against my oath, he said, voice hoarse. I am yours to judge. Rhaegar placed a hand on the young knight's shoulder. You protected the realm from ruin. Rise, Ser Jaime, and keep your cloak. You will guard my father, in the chambers prepared for him within the Silent Keeper's wing. He will be cared for, not executed." Jaime swallowed, relief warring with guilt, and rose. One by one the council set tasks. Barristan to restore order among the gold cloaks, Connington to accept Storm's End surrender, Pycelle to summon healers for the king, Varys to root out remaining pyromancers hiding caches. When all had been spoken, only Eddard remained. "Lyanna," he said. Rhaegar nodded. "At first light we ride." The Tower of Joy rose stark against a cobalt sky, its pale stones shining like distant moonlight upon barren hills of dawn. The ride had taken days west across the Reach, Arthur and Gerald at his side. Lord Stark and a handful of Northmen followed close. They dismounted before the gates where Ser Oswell went stood sentinel. "Prince," whence voice carried mixture of reverence and regret. "She is inside, weak." Rhaegar entered the tower barefoot, sword unbelted, as though approaching sacred ground. The corridor smelled of lavender and old stone. At the bedchamber door he paused, bracing himself. Arthur murmured something behind him, unheard words of hope, and fell back. He pushed the door open. Lyanna Stark lay upon a narrow bed, skin porcelain beneath cascades of dark hair spread across linens soaked in sweat. A roundness of late pregnancy swelled beneath the thin shift. Her eyes fluttered open at the sound, and a weary smile cracked her lips. "You came," she whispered, voice a rasp of wind through dead leaves. He crossed the room in 2 strides, kneeling, taking her trembling hand. "Always." She closed her eyes and a tear traced down her temple. "I thought the war would never end. Wolves and dragons tearing each other apart for a dream." She drew a shaky breath. "Is it over?" "Yes." He kissed her palm. "My father is contained. The realm mends. Our child will be born into peace." Her fingers tightened around his. "Tell me of the Trident," she murmured, and he did softly, condensing hours of clash into simple truths. Robert fell, banners bent, justice sought. She listened, relief flooding fragile features. Pain racked her then. A low moan at first, swelling into a cry. Maesters hurried in, faces drawn. The babe was coming.
Rhaegar.
As ushered aside but refused to leave, clutching Lyanna's free hand as the room became a whirl of boiling water, blood-stained cloths shouted instructions. Hours blurred. Sisters of Mercy lit candles. Sweaty steam mingled with the scent of iron and crushed herbs. Lyanna screamed once, a wolf song that cut Rhaegar deeper than any blade. Then silence broken by a new sound. A wail, thin but fierce. "A boy!" the maester declared, voice cracking. He placed the swaddled infant in Lyanna's arms. She stared, tears trembling, then beckoned Rhaegar. He sat beside her and gazed down. The child's eyes squeezed shut, violet-tinged. A tuft of dark hair damp upon the soft skull. A hush fell over the room, broken only by the babe's mewling. "Have you a name?" the maester asked. Rhaegar swallowed. The prophecy of his dreams whispered, "The dragon has 3 heads." "Aegon," he said softly. "Aegon Targaryen, named for the conqueror who united the realm." Lyanna traced the babe's cheek. "Aegon," she repeated and smiled. News coursed through Westeros like spring rains upon parched field. King Aerys, unfit, confined. Prince Rhaegar named regent, a royal heir born at the Tower of Joy. Ravens flew from King's Landing carrying pardons, decrees of reconciliation, requests for lords to return seats in council. Some balked. Lord Tywin Lannister feigned illness behind gold-barred gates in Casterly Rock, but most answered, weary of war. At Storm's End, Stannis Baratheon emerged gaunt as Scarecrow, garrison near starvation. He surrendered after reading the prince's personal plea promising lands and leniency. He was sent to Dragonstone to serve as Warden of the Narrow Sea, a post of honor away from court intrigues. In Riverrun, Hoster Tully wept at news of Brandon's death but swore fealty, accepting betrothal of his daughter Lisa to Prince Viserys to seal peace. At Winterfell, Benjen Stark trained his squires sword by torchlight, dreaming of the dragons he might one day see at court. Yet peace, like a tender shoot, required tending. In the capital, grain stores ran low. The faith militant pressed for expiation of sin. Rhaegar convened assemblies, walked among septons, nobles, and small folk alike, speaking of collective guilt and shared future. He carried Aegon in arms upon the steps of Baelor's September 1 feast day, presenting the newborn prince to the cheering thousands. In that moment, even the poorest fishermen believed something bright might rise from ashes. Elia Martell arrived by sea, escorted by Prince Oberyn's fleet. She disembarked beneath banners of sun and spear, children in tow. At their first meeting within the Maidenvault Gardens, she and Rhaegar stood in stillness, years of sorrow playing across both faces. She looked at Lyanna, pale but firm beside him, then at the infant in Elia's arms, Rhaenys of 7 years, and let out a slow breath. "We cannot change yesterday," Elia said softly, "but let tomorrow be kinder." Lyanna bowed her head. Tears shimmered upon lashes. Rhaegar's heart broke and mended in one beat. From those women grew a pact. Elia remained Princess of Dragonstone, guardian of Rhaenys and Aegon the Elder. Lyanna held title Lady of Summerhall, consort of the Dragon Prince, mother to Aegon the Younger. 2 queens in truth, though crown rested on none yet. Autumn fell. Harvest wagons creaked through city gates. Bells rang above the great September in thanksgiving. Yet not all hearts were soothed. In the smoky back rooms of Flea Bottom, old conspirators whispered that Rhaegar's mercy was weakness. The faith condemned polygamy. Lords spurned Dornish alliances. Enemies not slain at Trident plotted now in shadows. Word reached Rhaegar of Sellsword's gathering across the narrow sea, of Tywin's envoys slipping coin to Braavosi bankers. He summoned a great council to Harrenhal, site of tourney where all had begun, to forge a charter ensuring succession, faith concord, and distribution of royal offices. Houses great and small attended, filling the black halls with color. Debates ran long into nights. Wine flowed, tempers flared. Yet Rhaegar listened, mediated, conceded when the realm needed. The charter emerged, sealed with dragon's wax. A promise of representation and reform unprecedented since Jaehaerys the Conciliator. On the final evening, with torches throwing quivering shadows across basalt walls, Rhaegar climbed the dais before gathered lords. "Once," he said, voice carrying like soft thunder, "I believed destiny a tale carved in stone. Yet stone can crack, and from fractures blossom seeds of change. Let us mend the stone, not by force of flame, but by tempering iron with compassion." Silence followed, then applause like surf against cliffs. Lord Mace Tyrell proclaimed fealty. Lord Tywin, absent, sent a message of guarded acceptance. Progress, slow but palpable. Still, whispers persisted of a Golden Company captain named Miles Toyne who vowed to seat a Blackfire pretender, of Ironborn reavers daring raids along the arbor. Peace demanded vigilance. Winter's first snows dusted King's Landing when Rhaegar knelt before the Iron Throne, Arthur Dayne placing the heavy crown upon his brow. He had resisted coronation, wishing his father to see reason, but Aerys' lucidity faded deeper each moon. The realm clamored for a crowned protector. The High Septon anointed him with 7 oils. Lyanna, Elia, and their children watched from galleries. Jaime stood at his right, Dawn at his left guarding. Horns blared. The people roared his name. "Rhaegar! Rhaegar! Rhaegar!" He rose, crown gleaming. The hall burst into color. Banners of dragon, wolf, sun, rose, trout. Even lions, begrudging, hung beside cranes and krakens. For a heartbeat he saw it. A song of ice and fire woven into living tapestry, unity born of sorrow. Yet songs could sour. He knew this. He felt the crown's weight settle, heavier than any helm. But beneath that weight he also felt the warmth of 2 women who believed in him, of children who would shape worlds, of friendships forged through fire. In that moment, Rhaegar Targaryen vowed that the realm would not burn again, not while a dragon with a poet's heart sat the Iron Throne. Days became weeks, weeks to months, each chiseled with labors of rule. He met daily with Maester Marwyn, who spoke of glass candles and far-seeing, with Lord Varys, whose whisper network warned of sickness in Old Town, of Tyroshi envoys seeking trade. He restructured the city watch, opening ranks to small folk proven loyal, not only noble bastards. He pressed the treasury to fund an orphanage within the Dragon Pit ruins, where children of war might find shelter beneath broken wings. Rhaegar visited Aerys often. The former king wandered his dim suite muttering to unseen flames, yet calm when music reached him. Rhaegar played harp by his bedside, fingers coaxing soft chords that once delighted a summer's tourney. Aerys would weep, recalling days before madness. Rhaegar wept with him. Not all wounds healed. Rhaenys, precocious and proud, struggled with her father's new wife sharing court. One evening she fled to the Godswood, sobbing that wolves had devoured her place. Lyanna found her beneath the heart tree, told her tales of Winterfell's snows that sing in moonlight, and promised riding lessons on a direwolf gray mare. The girl warmed slowly, but the divide between Dornish and northern hearts remained fissured. When Elaya's health faltered, old birthing scars, Dorne's heat long denied, Rhaegar summoned Maester Qyburn against Pycelle's protest. The unorthodox healer prescribed tonics of Shadowbinder root. Elia recovered, but rumors of dark arts seeped. The faith militant demanded Qyburn's arrest. Rhaegar refused, citing the Maester's saving of the princess. Faith leaders recoiled, tensions mounting between sept and throne. Snow-layered city roofs that winter deeper than most men recalled. Ships iced into Blackwater Bay. Bread lines stretched long. Rhaegar deployed royal grain, forbade hoarding, but black marketeers thrived. When a riot erupted at River Row, small folk torching a noble granary, Rhaegar rode alone into the mob, no armor save leather cloak. He spoke of hunger shared, of the realm as body where each part must feed the other. The crowd dispersed, ashamed, many kneeling. Some called him Prince of the People, yet others whispered weakness still. Letters from Casterly Rock arrived late frost, Tywin demanding seat as hand or threat of secession. Rhaegar responded with offer of marriage. His sister Daenerys, nearly full of flower, to Tywin's heir Jaime, uniting dragon and lion. A masterstroke, some said. A provocation, others argued. Jaime, bound to Kingsguard vows, could not wed unless released. When Rhaegar raised possibility of absolution, Jaime stared with haunted eyes. "I swore to protect you and yours," he said. "Let that be my only love." Thus negotiations foundered. Tywin's next raven carried but one line: "The rock stands alone." Spring thaw revealed corpses along the Blackwater, victims of winter's grip and unseen blades. Varys spoke of faceless men contracted by unknown purse. Rhaegar tightened guard around his children, assigned Arthur to lead the White Cloaks personally. One chilly dawn, Benjen Stark rode hard into the city bearing dire tidings. Houses Umber and Karstark rebelled, finding cause in Faith's grievance over polygamy. Septon Scolai, a fiery preacher, crowned them righteous. They marched on the neck, burning royalist holdfasts. Rhaegar convened war council. Some urged swift punishment, others advised negotiation. He weighed, heart heavy. To spill blood anew risked unraveling fragile peace. To ignore sedition invited contagion. He dispatched Lord Manderly north with grain ships, offering relief. He sent ravens promising audiences to grievances. Yet he also ordered Ser Arthur northward with a cadre of royal guards, to stand without aggression, a silent reminder the crown watched. Lyanna opposed the threat of force. Elia counseled diplomacy. Rhaegar listened, but nights grew restless, harp strings silent. In one such night he dreamt of a red sword glimmering in snowfall and a babe wrapped in smoky shadows. He woke chilled, fearing prophecy shifting like wind on embers. While tensions brewed, a tourney at Bitterbridge celebrated the marriage of Margaery Tyrell to Prince Viserys, a union forged by the Harrenhal Charter. Lords flocked, eager to forget lean years. Rhaegar rode in secret, disguised behind plain armor, to watch knights tilt. Yet when young Lord Renly Baratheon unhorsed Ser gone wild and crowned Margaery Queen of Love and Beauty, The crowd erupted in mirth, and for a fleeting moment, Rhaegar saw how a smile could win hearts more surely than swords. An assassin struck that night, aiming for the royal pavilion. Arthur intercepted the blade, but in the scuffle, a single stroke nicked the infant Aegon's cradle. The assassin died before words. Coins of Lannister mint filled his purse. Rage shook Rhaegar. The realm felt tremors as royal outriders surged across the reach seeking conspirators. They found none, yet suspicion poisoned every greeting thereafter. Arthur returned to King's Landing carrying the assassin's blade. Valyrian steel, lost for generations. Where it came from none knew. The sword of the morning presented it to Rhaegar. Enemies sharpen ancient grudges, Arthur warned. Rhaegar studied the black metal, its rippled sheen absorbing torchlight. Then we must forge alliances older still. Letters flew again. Rhaegar offered Lord Tywin the position of Master of Coin, seat on small council, and a promise his grandson would one day wed Rhaenys. After long silence, Tywin accepted. The realm exhaled, but the faith remained bitter. High Septon Benmore denounced royal immorality from Baelor's pulpit. Crowds shouted curses at dragon banners. Rhaegar proposed a spiritual concord. Elia and Lyanna would take vows before the seven affirming mutual respect, renouncing jealousy, raising children in shared faith and old gods both. The spectacle drew thousands. The image of two mothers joined hands around Aegon and Rhaenys softened hearts. For a time sermons praised unity over dogma. Summer's first heat blossomed across the crownlands. Orange trees in Maegor's garden perfumed warm nights where Lyanna and Elia strolled, children chasing fireflies. Rhaegar composed new songs, melodies weaving Dornish rhythm with northern mournful note. Minstrels carried them to every inn. A hush of prosperity seemed to settle. Yet far off, in the stepstones, sell sails amassed under a black dragon banner. When ravening came from Dragonstone of sails upon the seas, Rhaegar gathered counsel. The Golden Company, flush with Tyroshi coin, intended invasion to press the Blackfire line. Lord Stannis reported coastal villages burned. Rhaegar raised war banners once more but forged coalition. Stormlanders under Lord Selmy, Reach spears led by Mace, Dornish galleys under Oberyn, Northern Levy commanded by Eddard. For the first time, armies of sun, snow, and rose marched under the dragon's standard together. The campaign of the Stepstones raged through searing summer. Rhaegar led from the prow of mare axes, silver mail gleaming. On Black Sand Shore he clashed with Captain Miles Toyne, whose twin axes sang death. Their duel lasted till dusk. Toyne fell, but not before carving a line across Rhaegar's cheek that would scar like lightning. Victory came, but cost in blood ran high. On the deck of the flagship, Rhaegar read the lists of dead and wept. Yet when the fleet returned to the Blackwater, crowds thronged, praising unity. The realm, tempered by battle shared rather than war of brothers, stood stronger. Years turned. Streets rebuilt, holdfasts rose anew. Ares died quietly in Songkeeper's wing, harp lullaby easing final breath. Rhaegar held vigil alone, then ordered funeral pyre upon Dragonstone's windswept cliff. Ashes scattered into sea, madness laid to rest. Prince Aegon of Summerhall grew tall, sparring with Uncle Arthur beneath red oaks. Prince Aegon of Dragonstone studied histories with Maester Aemon, silver quill scratching dragons across parchment. Rhaenys danced with Braavosi sword teacher Syrio, feet light as cat. Alliances woven through marriages. Sansa Stark betrothed to the younger Aegon, Quentyn Martell to Rhaenys, knots of ice and desert sun. In quiet evenings, Rhaegar walked the gardens with harp song drifting, Lyanna laughing as Elia tried to teach Dornish step. Fireflies flickered like scattered rubies in the dusk. He looked upon his family, scars and all, and understood prophecy never promised perfection, only possibility. And somewhere deep within hearths across Westeros, small folk told children of the day the Dragon Prince chose mercy over flame, love over fear, and in doing so forged a peace that might yet endure longer than any sword. The last embers of summer smoldered in Westeros like the glow of a dying hearth, casting a soft warmth across fields ripening to gold while hinting, just faintly, at chill winds stirring beyond the horizon. In the Red Keep's gardens, under the whispering branches of imported lemon trees now heavy with fruit, Rhaegar Targaryen walked a slow circuit each dawn. He disliked rising before light, for dreams clung to him like cobwebs. Dreams in which rubies fell endlessly into black water and a lone harp note echoed across a field of winter roses. Yet habit drew him from his bed every morning to measure the pulse of peace he had wrought, to listen for any discordant beat that might foretell its end. He passed beneath an arbor where vines curled, inhaling the faint citrus. 2 white cloaks flanked the gates to the courtyard beyond. Ser Barristan and Ser Jaime turned silhouettes in the orange glow of sunrise. They bowed, but Rhaegar merely nodded, eyes far away. Elaya's voice drifted on the breeze behind him, a gentle admonition to young Aegon for climbing fountain rims. Somewhere farther off, Lyanna's laughter pealed, a bright wolf's bark, as Rhaenys chased her half-brother around a rosebush. Those sounds buoyed him, yet the air carried others too. The ring of distant forge hammers, the clatter of armor as the city watch drilled, the low rumbling of work gangs meant to repair fire-gutted tenements along Cobbler Square. Westeros healed, but healing flesh still itched and ached. By mid-morning, he sat in the small council chamber with sunlight filtering through colored glass windows shaped like dragon's wings. Lord Tywin Lannister occupied the Master of Coin's high-backed chair now, velvet crimson cloak draped neatly. His cold green eyes flicked to each speaker with hawk quickness. To Tywin's left sprawled Prince Oberyn Martell, boots up on polished oak, eyes half-lidded yet sharp as viper fangs. Grand Maester Pycelle droned through grain levy tallies, ticking parchment like a locust. Rhaegar listened, asking pointed questions. How many wagons reached Crackclaw Point? What of the wells of Duskendale? Had the gold cloaks uncovered the thieves skimming barley? Weighing each answer as though it were steel in his palm. We are solvent again, Tywin concluded, voice clipped. But only just. The crown's debts to the Iron Bank remain formidable. We will repay, Rhaegar said, gradually without bleeding the small folk. Increase harbor tariffs on Myrish lace and Volantine spices, luxuries the elite can afford, and divert a quarter of royal silk allowance to grain purchases for the coming winter. Pycelle sputtered about tradition. Oberyn smirked. Tywin's mouth twitched. Approval, perhaps, or mere acknowledgement. The motions passed. Next came Varys, gliding in like a ghost scented with lilac oil, whispering of iron-born raiders testing the Shield Islands, of a boy in the Riverlands preaching that dragons were demons wearing human flesh. Rhaegar sighed. He would need to travel again soon, tamping sparks before they flared. When the council adjourned, Jaime fell into step beside him in the corridor, golden hair catching torchlight. The Ironborn are restless, Your Grace, he said. Let me sail with a squadron and remind them the realm is not yet ripe for pillage. Not yet, Rhaegar replied. Balon Greyjoy loves nothing more than an excuse to claim oppression by dragons. We must answer with diplomacy first. Diplomacy, Jaime muttered, lips twisting, is easier with a sword sheathed at your side, which is why you will accompany the envoy, Rhaegar said, glancing sideways. Your presence alone will speak. Jaime's brows rose in reluctant amusement. That evening, Rhaegar found Lyanna on a terrace overlooking the Blackwater. She leaned on the balustrade, cloak swirling in river breeze, hair unbound. Below, lantern barges drifted, their reflections painting trembling fire trails on dark water. He slipped an arm around her waist. You think of Winterfell, he guessed. Always this time of year, she murmured. First frosts must have kissed the weirwood leaves by now. He pressed his cheek to hers, breathing the scent of pine that clung to her even here. We will ride north next moon turn, he promised. Eddard writes that the harvest feast awaits our presence. The realm should see dragon and wolf break bread at the same table. She smiled, but worry shadowed the edges. Some dragons still fear wolves, and some wolves have long memories. Memories dull, he said softly. When children laugh together, she placed a hand over his heart and asked no more. They set out late in the month of the Maiden, a royal progress winding up the King's Road like a painted serpent. white cloaks at the head, banners of crimson and gold, of rose and spear, of dire wolf and dragon fluttering. Peasants gathered to gawk, to cheer, to press tokens of BR. Adi or woven charms into outstretched hands. Everywhere Rhaegar stopped, at Hayford's modest keep, at the smoking ruins of Sow's Horn now under reconstruction. He spoke with smiths, midwives, bakers, hearing grievances, gifting coin, promising redress. Slow, methodical, he built trust handspan by handspan. Lord Tywin declined to ride with them, citing gout. Rhaegar suspected he preferred to oversee the Rock's mines and letters in solitude. Oberyn Martell came instead, bringing a retinue of spearmen who sang bawdy songs around night fires. Their laughter mingled with northern drummers in curious harmony. Near Harrenhal they paused. The castle's black towers still bore scars of dragonfire centuries old. Yet within the inner ward tents blossomed for an autumn tourney called upon short notice by Lady Went in honor of peace. Some whispered she sought to restore fortunes lost during rebellion. Others claimed Varys urged the gesture to lure potential conspirators into one place. Rhaegar had consented, though wary. Harrenhal for him conjured bittersweet ghosts. He entered the lists wearing plain gray armor, no crest, no rubies, seeking anonymity impossible for a silver-haired dragon. Still, the crowd roared his name. He tilted against Ser Lyn Corbray, sending the Vale Knight sprawling with a single perfect lance strike that shattered at impact. Against Lord Roose Bolton he rode more cautiously, for the Northern Lord's pale eyes held eerie calm. Yet Bolton's mount shied at the moment of clash, unseating its rider. The stands erupted, but Rhaegar dismounted before the cheers died, helping the Lord to his feet, declaring the tilt a draw. Murmurs rippled. Gallant prince, some said. Calculating, others whispered. Rhaegar cared little. He felt only the tension coil deeper in his shoulders with each shouted acclaim, as though prophecy's noose tightened around his throat. On the final day, Oberyn donned sun and spear emblazoned shield, challenging 3 knights in succession, whirling his lance with theatrical flourishes that drew shrieks from ladies and smirks from grizzled veterans. He unhorsed too. The third, a burly Stormlander, managed to break Oberyn's lance but fell to a deft sidestep and pommel blow. Afterward, feasting spilled into Harrenhal's vast hall of 100 hearths, banners swaying above tables laden with roast boar and honeyed apples. Minstrels plucked lutes, jesters cavorted. High on the dais, Rhaegar sat between Lyanna and Elia, the 2 women conversing quietly. Across, Lord Mace Tyrell spoke boisterously of his daughter Marjorie's budding courtly graces to a patient Eddard Stark. At times Rhaegar caught Ned's distant expression. Eyes turned toward nothing, perhaps recalling the last tourney at Harrenhal, where laughter curdled to war. Rhaegar raised his goblet, nodding. Ned smiled faintly and drank. Near midnight, a hush swept the hall. Door hinges shrieked and a cloaked figure strode in, steps echoing like drumbeats. The stranger flung back hood to reveal a woman with hair red as coals banked in the hearth and eyes like gleaming embers. She wore a necklace of ruby beads that pulsed faint light. "I am Melisandre of Ass High," she proclaimed, voice carrying preternaturally. "I bring a warning to the Dragon King." Rhaegar rose slowly. "Speak. The night is dark and full of terrors," she intoned. "A shadow moves beyond the wall, ancient and cold, older than dragons and direwolves. Should the songs of summer lull you to sleep, winter's maw will swallow the world. Only a prince that was promised, born amidst salt and smoke, can turn the tide with Lightbringer in his hand." A ripple of unease coursed through the crowd. Some scoffed. Others crossed themselves before the 7. Rhaegar's heart thudded. He remembered the scar across his cheek, the battle smoke on the stepstones, Lyanna's tears salty on his lips. Salt and smoke indeed, yet prophecy had misled him before. "How know you this?" he asked. "The flames speak," Melisandre said. "I have gazed upon them. I have seen a sword of living fire held aloft against swarming dead. Your grace." She knelt. "Darkness gathers. Heed the red god signs." Rhaegar gestured for guards to escort her to quarters, not dungeons. "We will speak again," he said, but sleep eluded him that night while wind moaned through cracked basalt. In dream he stood upon a frozen plain, harp shards in his hands, and before him rose figures of ice wearing faces of men long dead. Robert, Arthur, even Ares, each howling soundless condemnation. A single star bled red across the sky, then winked out. At dawn he summoned Arthur, Barristan, and Ned to a frost-rimmed solar. There he recounted the dream and Melisandre's words. Ned frowned, rubbing gloved hands together. "Old Nan's tales," he muttered. "Snow White's white shadows, its child's dread. Yet wildling tribes speak the same," Rhaegar replied. "If there is truth, we cannot ignore it." Arthur rested palm atop dawn. "Then we ride north once court concludes. A scouting host to Eastwatch, perhaps beyond the wall."
Ned exhaled.
"The Night's Watch is sworn for that, but few they are these days. Then we lend them strength," Rhaegar said, "and we ask the maesters of Old Town for every record on Long Night and Valyrian steel." Thus, before journeying to Winterfell, he dispatched ravens across the realm. Orders for additional levies to defend the northern border, requests for dragonsteel blades located in dusty vaults. Tywin balked at cost. Oberyn laughed at superstition. Yet Rhaegar persisted. Winterfell loomed vast, gray, and snow-kissed beneath an iron sky when the progress arrived. Steam rose from its hot springs in plumes that blurred the battlements. Small folk lined the wooden walkways bundled in furs, eyes bright at the sight of silver dragons and sun spears. Lyanna wept openly as she entered the gatehouse, dismounting to fall into Benjen's embrace. Ned's wife Catelyn, auburn hair tucked beneath wolf pelt, welcomed Elia with curious grace. The children, Robb, Sansa, little Arya, and toddling Bran, crowded near, awestruck by Rhaenys's bold Dornish dress and young Aegon's miniature wolf cloak pin. That night, feast fires roared in the great hall. Harp strings sang. Casks of strong northern ale were broached. At high table, Rhaegar toasted the Starks, stewards of honor in a realm once broken, now healed, and pledged to defend their north as fiercely as their own blood. Cheers rattled rafters. Yet he watched Lord Ricard Stark's empty seat, soul pang with memory of unjust flame. Ned caught the glance, giving a small nod of understanding. They shared the burden. On the second day, Lyanna guided Elia through Winterfell's crypts, holding lantern high. They passed carved stone kings, wolves at their feet, until they stood before Lyanna's own empty niche, dug when she was thought dead. Silence filled the cavern like water. Elia reached to touch the cold granite, then clasped Lyanna's hand. "The gods gave you back," Elia whispered. "May they give this peace eternity." Lyanna squeezed, tears shimmering, but said nothing. They climbed upward into weak daylight where snows drifted gentle. Rhaegar spent hours with Maester Luwin beside a hearth, poring over chronicles of the long night. The texts were scarce, fragments of runes or children's songs. Each account different, yet constants emerged. A winter without end, dead that walked, a hero bearing a burning blade. Luwin dismissed them as allegory of seasonal famine. Rhaegar listened, but in his mind Melisandre's rubies pulsed. He ordered caches of obsidian acquired from Dragonstone's volcanics to be shipped to the wall. Gendry Baratheon, orphan apprentice to Mikken the Smith, took wide-eyed charge of shaping arrowheads, thrilled by royal favor. Small steps, Rhaegar thought, bricks laid against oncoming tide none else believed. 2 weeks melted into camaraderie. At dawn drills, Arthur sparred with Robb Stark, praising the boy's quick wrists. Barristan showed Arya the correct salute. She mimicked, tongue poking in concentration. In the Godswood, Elia knelt before the weirwood, whispering Dornish prayers for her children's futures. It seemed as if time itself slowed, letting wounds knit. But ravens never cease. One arrived from King's Landing bearing news of plague in Flea Bottom. Fires set to quarantine, unrest brewing. Tywin demanded Rhaegar's return. Another came from Old Town, a cache of scrolls discovered, describing an ancient ceremony waking stone dragons. Rhaegar felt tugged between fires domestic and distant. One icy evening, as auroras shimmered green across the north sky, Melisandre appeared again. How she crossed leagues undetected none could say. She stood in the courtyard, snow swirling like embers around her. "I followed the flames," she said, bowing when Rhaegar confronted her with wary guard escort. "They lead to you, Azor Ahai Reborn." He frowned. "That name haunts stories older than Valyria. It haunts reality." She produced a slender dagger, glassy black. "Dragonglass, found in Shadowlands. Kills what walks in night. Take it as token." He accepted, feeling a chill that was not from snow. She spoke further. Of a comet soon to grace the sky, of castles where hearth fires would fail. She asked to serve as advisor. Rhaegar deferred. That night he and Lyanna stood upon Winterfell's battlements, children asleep, castle calm. "Do you believe her?" Lyanna asked. "I believe possibility," he answered. "But belief alone saves no kingdom. Preparation might." She tucked his cloak closer. "You cannot bear every prophecy's weight. Yet weight born may spare others," he said, pressing lips to her forehead. He left Winterfell after the harvest feast. Vows exchanged in the gods wood pledging stark swords to the realm's call. Rhaenys wept to leave new friends. Aegon the Younger clutched a carved direwolf Benjen gifted. Snow chased them south, flurries swirling across golden leaves. On return to King's Landing, Rhaegar found tensions taut. Tywin reported plague contained but commerce suffering. Faith militant preaching pestilence, a sign of divine anger for polygamy. Merchants complaining of Sunspear tariffs funding obsidian shipments. In the throne room, he addressed representatives of guilds and septs alike, explaining measures, promising relief. Some accepted, others left murmuring. At dusk, Varys appeared with whispers of a conspiracy between discontented faith zealots and unknown financiers. Rumors of a plot to blow wildfire beneath the September of Baelor when next the royal family attended service, blaming Targaryens for sacrilege. Rhaegar ordered an immediate discreet sweep of the underways. Jaime led teams of sappers, discovering 5 casks hidden in catacomb recesses. They bore sigils scratched crudely, lion, stag, sparrow, and thus told him nothing save that chaos wore many masks. The casks were removed. The city never knew how near its doom had crept. In gratitude, Rhaegar knighted 2 minor gutter-born men who tipped the gold cloaks, breaking precedent. Tywin frowned, but small folk toasted. Yet the Ironborn would not wait on politics. Reavers struck Flint's finger then vanished, leaving charred villages. At Marjorie Tyrell's wedding tourney in Highgarden, envoys arrived begging royal response. Rhaegar convened lords in the Highgarden Rose Garden fragrant even in autumn. Stannis Baratheon, stern in black, argued for punitive fleet assault. Mace Tyrell advocated coastal forts. Oberyn offered to sail personally with scorpions mounted on Dromonds. After long debate, Rhaegar commissioned a new royal fleet combining Stormland and Reach shipwright craft, placed Stannis admiral, Oberyn commander of Outriders. Construction would take time. Meanwhile, he sent ravens to Pike warning Balon of dire reprisals. Balon replied with a scrap of kraken leather bearing a single code. "We do not so." It arrived soaked in seawater. Snow fell early that year in the foothills of the Vale. Reports said lambs born with frostbite, unnatural chill creeping south. Rhaegar dispatched maesters to study. They returned with broken thermometers and wide eyes. The red comet came at last, bleeding across the night sky like a fresh wound. Citizens clustered in streets stunned silent. Some prayed, others wept. Melisandre stood on the walls of Dragonstone at dawn, flame dancing in her palms, whispering that the sword of heroes must be tempered in living heart's blood. Rhaegar, from the balcony of Maegor's Holdfast, gazed long and felt the prophecy coiling again. He summoned his children to the garden that morning. Rhaenys looked up, eyes wide. "Is the sky bleeding, father?" "It bleeds to warn," he answered, kneeling. "To remind us we hold our world fragile." Young Aegon touched the scar on Rhaegar's cheek. "You will keep us safe?" "With every breath." Elia watched, tears shimmering. Lyanna placed a steady hand upon his shoulder. He rose, feeling a decision crystallize. That afternoon he called council. "I will travel beyond the wall," he declared. Tywin's brows shot upward. Pycelle sputtered. Jaime's mouth fell open. Rhaegar continued, "I must see truth myself. I will not rule blind while darkness gathers." Arthur Dayne stood instantly. "I ride with you." "So do I," said Eddard's voice from the doorway, newly arrived bearing dispatches, and no argument could sway him. Tywin warned abandoning capital risked plots. Rhaegar appointed Elia regent with Han Tywin and Lord Connington as justiciar. Some scoffed at a woman regent. Lyanna countered by pledging to command city defenses alongside Barristan. Doubts quieted momentarily. Preparations swift. Obsidian weapons loaded. Ravens trained to carry messages at night. Gendry forged spearheads of dragonglass for Stark Rangers. The royal party, a few hundred elite, rode north again in winter's bite. Along the way they gathered wildling rumors. Giant shapes in haunted forest, blue shadows in Frostfang passes, villages empty save for frozen bones. They reached Castle Black under sky slate gray. The wall rose like moonlit ice to the heavens, dwarfing all. Old Lord Commander Jeor Mormont greeted Rhaegar with wary respect. The Night's Watch brothers stared at silver hair and white cloaks in awe. Supplies unloaded, rangers briefed. That night, in the commander's chambers heated by roaring blackstone hearth, maps spread across oak, they planned. Rhaegar would lead a ranging of 100. Arthur, Jaime, Benjen, Corran Halfhand, Jojen Reed as guide, Melisandre insisting to come, claiming fire protects against cold. Ned remained garrisoned to coordinate reinforcement, though his eyes yearned for the wild. Before dawn, Lyanna's raven arrived. Plague fading, faith concord restored. She missed him fiercely. Elias followed. Rhaenys wrote a song about Comet. Aegon Elder practiced archery. Tywin restless but dutiful. These words were lanterns against northern dark. They marched through the frost-pale forest beyond the wall, boots crunching crusted snow, breath plumed before faces. Obsidian blades glinted black as void. Days passed in quiet, only wind whispering through pines. At Craster's keep they paused. The old man sneered, claiming gods favor his sacrifices. Rhaegar left him coin for food, refusing deeper inquiry that sickened him. Farther north they climbed haunted passes where trees grew twisted, bark white as bone. One night flames guttered low, and Benjen reported shadows standing beyond Treeline, tall, unmoving. When Arthur and Jaime strode forth, sword and torch raised, the shapes vanished. Tracks led nowhere. A blizzard struck, blinding for 2 days. They huddled in a cave smelling of earth and old smoke. Melisandre murmured prayers, ruby pulsing. Rhaegar dreamt again. He stood on a hill of ash, holding a sword blazing red-white, its heat melting snow around him, while ranks of ice-armored corpses climbed. As first white touched the blade, it exploded into steam. He woke shivering even beside fire. Blizzard eased, revealing Silver Valley. In its heart loomed a ring of black monoliths. Approaching, they found scripture carved in spirals impossible to read. Beneath central stone, a hole descended into darkness from which emanated faint cold wind carrying whispers like language just beyond hearing. Melisandre insisted the place was altar of others. Arthur wanted to collapse entry. Rhaegar studied runes until dusk, copying shapes on parchment. That night whites attacked, dead wildlings shambling, eyes blue. Screams rent the cold. Dragonglass arrows glowed faintly as they flew, each hit bursting a white into shards. Arthur's dawn cut arcs of pale light. Jaime's Valyrian sword screamed against icy blades. Rhaegar fought at center, harp calluses torn anew on sword hilt. He pierced a white's heart with dragonglass dagger, corpse crumpled lifeless. Amid clash, a tall figure in armor of icy crystal strode forward, spear of white fire crackling. Arthur confronted, blades meeting with sound like shattering stars. Sparks of blue frost. Arthur staggered, but dawn's light flared, driving the figure back. It raised hand, whistle piercing. Whites retreated into dark as quickly as they had come. They counted losses. 6 brothers dead, one Kingsguard squire frostbitten. Rhaegar knelt by corpses, anger and sorrow mixing thick. "We must return," Corin urged. "Tell the world." Arthur nodded grimly. Even Melisandre seemed shaken. Yet as they turned south, the tall figure reappeared upon ridge, watching. Rhaegar felt chill deeper than flesh, a promise unspoken. They reached Castle Black battered. Rhaegar penned letters through night, to Elia, to Lyanna, to the Lords of Realm, recounting encounter. He called for a convocation of great houses at Winterfell next spring, an alliance of men against threat beyond petty feuds. Ravens flew into gathering snow. He lingered at the wall a fortnight, training brothers with obsidian, ordering new forges. In one silent dawn, he climbed the icy steps to stand atop parapet. The world stretched white and boundless. He imagined an army of dead crossing that emptiness. He vowed they would not breach. Before departure, he visited the crypt of a Lord Commander lost long before, leaving dragonglass dagger at statue's feet. A gesture perhaps futile, yet symbol mattered. On the long ride south, winter storms battered them. Ben-Jen spoke little, haunted by memory of shadows. Jaime dreamt of wildfire and icy swords melding, woke cursing. Arthur remained sentinel, dawn always within arm's reach. They arrived at Winterfell to find Ned organizing stores, training levies. Lyanna embraced Rhaegar beside Heart Tree, tears freezing to cheeks. He held her long, murmuring of dangers ahead, of faith in dawn. At court convened within Great Hall, he addressed lords of North and Riverlands assembled for Yuletide. "The wall is not myth, the dead walk, yet together we stand stronger than any shadow. When comet fades, we will wield its memory as torch." Some scoffed still, others listened eyes wide. Seeds planted. Rhaegar traveled south again, determination forged. At Moat Cailin he met envoys from Tywin bearing news. King's Landing faced faction strife, sparrows clashing with gold cloaks, town bell silent in fear. Elia urged his swift return. He pressed hard, arriving to torches flickering across rooftops. The city smelled of smoke and fear. Elia greeted him in Maegor's corridors, cheeks gaunt. "The High Septon declared you false king for abandoning realm," she whispered. "He calls for demonstration at Baelor September at week's end." Rhaegar's jaw tightened. "Then we give him audience." In the week he walked streets clad in simple cloak, talking to butchers, potters, plague survivors. He mended broken roof for a widow, shared bread at soup line. Word spread. The king returned, unafraid. Tension eased a little. Day of audience dawned cold under slate sky. Thousands gathered in square before September of Baelor. High Septon stood upon marble pulpit flanked by warrior sons armored, 7-pointed stars glinting. He thundered accusations. The king practiced heresy with Shadowbinder, consorted with 2 wives, abandoned his flock to chase fantasies, wasted coin on black stone from cursed volcano. Murmurs rose. Rhaegar stepped forward clad not in armor but plain wool surcoat, harp slung across back. He raised hands. "I have sinned," he said, voice ringing. "I have loved beyond custom, sought answers beyond September. But every sin I own was born of desire to protect this realm. Wolves and lions alike know darkness gathers. If you doubt, join me at Winterfell come thaw and hear witness of those who faced it." He removed ruby brooch from his collar, holding it aloft. "I would be judged not by jewels, but deeds." He flung the ruby into crowd. It vanished flashing scarlet. Silence fell. The High Septon faltered, lines of prepared denouncement lost. Among crowd, a one-armed baker shouted, "He shared bread with me when my boy was sick." A woman cried, "He paid for our roof." Voices swelled, shouts of loyalty, defiance of zealotry. Some warriors' sons lowered swords, uncertain. The High Septon shrieked, "Blasphemy!" raised hand in curse. A thrown apple struck his forehead. He stumbled. Guards escorted him inside amidst jeers. Rhaegar knelt, pressing palm to cracked marble, praying quietly. Then he lifted harp, plucking gentle chords. A hush spread as melody floated, notes of Summerlands, of northern snows, of desert winds, songs woven into single river of sound. When last chord faded, many wept. Peace did not come that day, but seeds of fear planted by sparrows withered some, replaced by seeds of hope. Rhaegar convened council that evening, decreeing amnesty for common sparrows who laid down arms, but outlawing militant orders steal within city. Tywin proposed harsh purge. Rhaegar refused, citing mercy. Jaime spoke for watchful vigilance. Oberyn proposed festival of lights to unify. It was adopted. Lanterns would line every street come new moon, symbol of guiding fire. As winter deepened, black sails appeared again off coasts, Ironborn striking Maidenpool. Stannis' nascent fleet sailed to meet them. Battle in sunrise lit broken masts like charred fingers. Reports claimed Stannis captured Victarion Greyjoy after duel on deck. Rhaegar later honored Stannis with title Lord Admiral of Realm, granting higher stipend for shipyards. Stormlander and Reach envoys roared approval. Tyrell Lannister factions eyed each other warily. Balance shifted subtle. By midwinter, a hush of anticipation settled. The great gathering at Winterfell approached. Ravens flew across Westeros bearing summons. Some houses scoffed, "Who fears children's tales?" Yet many answered, curiosity piqued, loyalty to repaired realm strong. Even Doran Martell wrote acceptance, though bitter memory lingered. Within the Red Keep, Rhaegar visited the library each night, deciphering runes from monolith rubbings. Scholars found parallels to archaic Giscari glyphs of darkness devouring sun. He concluded the symbols described cycle, hinting at a key. Dragon's breath warms the cold heart, cryptic still. He requested pyromancers produce controlled flame breath devices for exploration beyond wall, ignoring the uneasy looks. On the eve of departure north once more, Elia walked with him along outer curtain wall above glittering Blackwater waters. Moon glowed, comet now gone, leaving stars sharp. "You carry burden none should alone," she said, smoothing stray hair. "Let me ride too." "You are regent," he answered. "Realm needs your steadiness." "And you, I need your faith," he admitted, voice raw. She pressed warm palm against his chest, felt heartbeat. "Then take it as always." Below them, waves sighed. They stood in silence, city lights reflecting. In March's thaw, the royal caravan rolled again. Tywin remained to govern coin, Varys to network whispers. Melisandre rode with Rhaegar now openly, ruby burning like small sun. Southron knights swapped jest with free folk guides, forging improbable fellowship. At White Harbor, Lord Wyman welcomed fleet of longships bearing logs of rare hardpine to speedwall repairs. He feasted them on spiced fish pie, repeating rumors of northern clay moats heating water, curious defense. Rhaegar listened, mind turning possibilities. They reached Winterfell as spring crocus pierced snowdrifts. Tents sprawled beyond walls. Banners of Baratheon, Stannis, Renly, Tyrell Roses, Aeron Falcon, Greyjoy Kraken, though Balon absent, sending daughter Asha, Blackwood Ravens, Fry Twins Blue Towers, plus Dornish Suns and Martell Vipers. Within Godswood, a council of war and winter assembled. Rhaegar stood beneath Heart Tree, red leaves rustling like shaken parchment. Lords circled bonfires, breath pluming. He spoke first of peace bought, of duty shared, then yielded floor to Corran Halfhand who recounted whites. Murmurs rose, skepticism meeting horror. Benjen Stark presented frostburnt hand of dead ranger, preserved in ice, which twitched when brought near flame. Gasps. Melisandre invoked the Lord of Light, warning of long night. Maester Aemon, ancient and frail, born north in litter, quoted records of last sunrise lost. Evidence stacked like snow drifts. Debate raged 3 days. Some demanded return home, others argued for raising 10,000 men at wall. Rhaegar moderated, patient. On fourth day, Davos Seaworth arrived sailing by night, smuggling barrels of obsidian from Dragonstone. He testified how dragonglass slew whites. Conviction grew. Finally, pact signed. Each great house would supply 200 seasoned men for watch service, rotate every 5 years. levies of grain and leather to be tithed, maesters to study dragonglass and Valyrian steel forging, ravens to maintain steady flight lines. They called pact the Oath of Dawn, sealed in blood pricked onto parchment, ashes scattered on snow then burned, symbolizing fire and ice bound. Feast followed, wolf meat stewed with honeyed apples, Dornish wines warming chill. Musicians played Rhaegar's newest composition, a melancholy yet hopeful refrain echoing across courtyard. Lords danced. Children laughed chasing direwolf pups. In quiet after feast, Eddard and Rhaegar walked ramparts. Stars shimmered. She would be proud, Ned said softly, glancing toward Cripps. So would your father, Rhaegar answered. Ned nodded, eyes moist. They clasped forearms. Peace made of flesh, not parchment. Yet whispers traveled faster than ravens. In Lannisport, a hidden sept convened. Septon Maribald denounced oath as abomination, claiming dragon sorcery overshadowed faith. Merchants fretted. Tywin tightened patrols. In Old Town, archmesters debated. Some feared focus on North drain knowledge from Citadel. In Pentos, Magister Illyrio wrote to unknown ally. The dragon unites men under Red Star. Opportunity dwindles. In Bravos, bankers recalculated risk. Across Narrow Sea, in Great Grass Sea, Khal Drogo gazed at comet shards still faint, believing prophecy of fiery stallion. He turned his Khalasar westward. At Volantis, red priests exulted, proclaiming Dragon King champion of R'hllor, sending emissaries. Seas churned with movement of fate. Back in King's Landing, Tywin received letter sealed in black wax. Threat upon lion cubs should the dragon's crusade continue. He summoned his dwarf son Tyrion, long abroad carousing, charging him to root conspiracy. Tyrion accepted, eyes alight. Spring floods quickened. King's Road turned to muck. Rhaegar remained at Winterfell overseeing training. Stannis drilling archers with obsidian-tipped arrows. Brienne of Tarth sparring Hodder, laughter echoing. Asha Greyjoy trading axe techniques with Dornish spears. Walls thrummed with purpose. One gray dawn, Raven Black as Void arrived bearing single phrase. Assassin in flight. Barristan read it, brow furrowed. Hours later, arrow streaked from tree line toward Heart Tree where Rhaegar knelt in meditation. Arthur's reflex saved him, dawn deflecting shaft. Benjen and wolves pursued Archer, returning with body. One of Craster's sons, eyes glazed blue even in death. No blood spilled when skin sliced, flesh brittle with frost. How it came so far south none knew. Fear rippled along spines. Others infiltrated realms of men. Rhaegar called immediate muster. Patrols doubled. Ravens flew. He felt timeline compress, prophecy's gears clicking faster. That night, beneath swirling snow, he drew sword and approached Melisandre by fire pit. She stared into flames, seeing shapes. I need the blade of legend, he said. It must be forged in living fire, she replied. Hear me, he pleaded. I will give what is required, but no innocent will burn. She smiled sadly. The flames decide innocence. Perhaps, he answered. Yet a true king decides mercy. He turned away before her reply, heart heavy. Next morn, he gathered maesters and smiths. Command to begin experiments fusing Valyrian steel with dragonglass. They balked, impossible, they claimed. Gendry volunteered, stubborn. Rhaegar funded forge within Winterfell's hot spring cavern. Heat from earth itself might suffice. Experiments began, folding black obsidian dust into molten steel, quenching in ice water. Many blades shattered, yet each failure taught. As spring waned, first successful sword emerged. Rippled dark steel streaked with red veins of frozen magma, edge keen. They named it Dawnfire. Arthur tested, slicing iron shield clean. Rhaegar held blade at dusk. It refracted sunset, seeming to glow. Could it hold light of fire? Unknown. Still hope. Soon after, ravens screamed from south. Dorne in revolt? No, scouts spied cell sails landing at Planky Town. Blackfire banners risen again, allied with Yunkish war elephants. Oberyn's daughters harried them but outnumbered.
Va treat niet.
Rhaegar convened Oath Council. He could not abandon Northern Watch, yet Dornish desert might burn. Stannis offered fleet. Tyrell pledged grain. Ned volunteered swords. Rhaegar drafted plan. Split forces. Stannis sails south with Reach/Dornish spears supported by Lannister gold, while he remains north finalizing bulwark. Arthur accompanies Stannis. Jaime stays with King. Orders sealed. Couriers ride. Lyanna confronted him by hot spring pool, steam rising. You cannot be in all places. I must try. She touched his scar. You are man, not prophecy. He kissed her. If prophecy fails, let deeds speak. And so summer approached with armies marching both northward and south, dragons of stone perhaps stirring in dark, dead men creeping beneath snow, and hearts of living burning bright enough, perhaps, to keep winter's jaws at bay. Snowmelt ran in silver ribbons down the gargoyle-scarred gutters of Winterfell's curtain walls, tinkling like chimes in the hush before sunrise. Steam coiled from the hot spring pools beneath the Godswood Bridge, rising to mingle with the kindling smoke of campfires that furred the encircled tents of lords and levies. Rhaegar Targaryen stood at the battlement's edge in cloak and mail, dawn fire sheathed at his hip and wet hair trailing from a sleepless night. Beyond the bailey, he could hear Stannis drilling archers by torchlight, the twang of bowstrings pacing the distant clang of Renly's makeshift tourney down by the lake where younger squires tried to out-tilt one another with blunt lances. Above, pink streaks brushed away the last of night's indigo, and with them the uneasy dreams that kept the king on his feet until exhaustion threatened to topple him. Footsteps scraped behind him. Eddard Stark, somber in charcoal furs, stopped beside the king and offered a steaming cup of willow bark tea. Rhaegar accepted with a murmur of thanks, both men staring out across the white and green sprawl of tents and rising banners. Your fleet sails at dawn, Ned said quietly. Oberyn sent word. Stannis means to catch the Yunkish at anchor in the shallows before Planky Town. Arthur will see him through, Rhaegar replied, bringing the cup to his lips. Bitter warmth crept across his tongue. But victory in Dorne will not matter if ice devours the north. Ned's gaze swept the horizon, as though expecting the others to crest the ridgeline any moment. The Oath of Dawn stands. My lords know the cost if they fail. They know it in words, Rhaegar said. Whether they know it in marrow, I cannot say. He drained the cup, handed it back, and set gloved hands on the frosted stone. I leave for the wall at noon, which is why I woke you. Ned drew a rolled parchment from his belt. A dispatch came by Raven from Brandon's gift. Rangers found a survivor in an abandoned crofter's village near the Milkwater. A wildling girl half-frozen, raving about a white-skinned rider who carried fire that burned blue. She swears the village wights would not cross an arch of weirwood roots set into the snow. Rhaegar frowned. Dragonglass and fire, we were certain. But weirwood? My people say the old gods dwell in the heart trees. Ned folded the parchment. If the children of the forest channeled some power into those roots, perhaps it lingers. Rhaegar's thoughts flicked to the obsidian-veined sword in his quarters, half forged by mortal smiths and half by restless prophecy. I will bring a branch of weirwood to the wall, he said. If its presence hinders the dead, we will line the battlements with whole forests. A raven croaked above them, breaking the stillness. Ned laid a hand on the king's shoulder. Take care, my friend. Too many kings are sung of in elegy instead of triumph. I have no desire to be a song, Rhaegar said, forcing a smile. Only a shield. 6 days later, under a sky bruised with low clouds, the royal column emerged from the shadow of towering ice. The wall reared above them, 700 feet of frozen stone glimmering blue-white where last sunlight fled, a giant's keep meant to guard a continent. At the gate, black-cloaked brothers saluted and parted. Jeor Mormont greeted Rhaegar on the steps, one gloved fist touching heart in homage. You bring more swords than I ever thought to see in my command, the Lord Commander said, voice rumbling like shifting boulders. Behind him, a queue of carts laden with barrels already trundled toward storage tunnels. Obsidian, cedar pitch, winter wheat, thick wool, all as promised. "And more to follow," Rhaegar answered. "But I need 100 of your best rangers tonight. No rest, no delay." Mormont's snowy brows lifted. "You aim to cross again so soon?" Rhaegar's jaw tightened. "The dead crossed farther south than we believed. A white archer nearly killed me in the Godswood at Winterfell. We must learn how it passed unseen." Mormont gave a slow nod, gaze hardening. "Then I ride too. Old bones can still swing a sword." In the yard, tack and saddle creaked while ravens cawed overhead. Ser Jaime tightened straps on his dappled gelding, cloak whipping in gusts. Beside him, Melisandre brushed snow from her crimson sleeves, ruby pendant glowing faintly. Benjen Stark distributed dragonglass daggers to fresh-signed volunteers from House Flint. Between the lines stood Jojen Reed thin with moss-green eyes staring at something distant and fearsome beyond the gate. He clutched a pouch of obsidian arrowheads Gendry had fashioned, each wicked sharp and blacker than crow feathers. As the ranging party rode into the gloom of the haunted forest, night slipped down like a velvet hood. Snowflakes danced in their torchlight, swirling around the horses' steaming breaths. The column stretched in silence, broken only by the squeak of leather and the distant howl of lone wolves. Dawnfire hung at Rhaegar's hip, each hoofbeat whispering along the undermusic of ghosts in the pines. They reached the Crofters' village by midnight, a cluster of moss-choked huts half sunken in snow. Doorways yawned black, lintels festooned with wind chimes of bone that clacked in the frigid air. Ice glazed everything, barrels, troughs, the skeletal remains of animals still tethered to hitch posts. In the center square, a well sat capped by a disk of cracked ice, crusted with frost like shattered glass. The survivor lay inside one hut, wrapped in night's watch cloaks. A girl of perhaps 10, skin pale as candle wax, hair black and stiff with frost. She started awake when Rhaegar knelt beside her, eyes wide. He offered water, coaxing gently as a father with a fevered child. Slowly words spilled in wildling dialect. White rider, burning antlers of cold flame, blue eyes like cracked sapphires, voices singing from the snow. She had fled through weirwood roots arching over a hollow, and the whites stopped at that threshold, as though some unseen barrier barred them. Rhaegar listened, one hand on her trembling fingers. When she slept again, he rose and ordered search. Rangers spread lanterns across snow, their beams sweeping silent cottages. Benjen discovered broken prints leading into a stand of ancient birch woven with weirwood roots. At the edge, drag marks of frozen bodies scraped the earth, then ceased abruptly at the root arch as if cut with a knife. Beyond, no trace.
Melisandre knelt, bare palm brusing bark.
"Old power lingers," she whispered. "Fire forgotten by men but not by gods." Jaime crouched, frowning. "So we carve these roots and carry them south? Desecrate the old god's shrine?" Benjen growled. "We ask the trees for a gift," Rhaegar said. He drew Dawnfire, its edge catching torchlight in red sparks. With reverent strokes, he cut a slender branch from the arch, each chip of wood releasing the faint scent of sap and winter roses. Snowflake embers drifted where red veins of iron in the blade brushed the wood. Sudden wind howled through the clearing, extinguishing 3 torches. In that breath of darkness, a shriek rose, a keening note of ice scraping steel. Shapes materialized at the tree line. 5 figures tall and thin, clad in armor of frozen crystal, eyes blazing blue fire. "White walkers, form on me," Rhaegar shouted. Rangers closed ranks, obsidian blades drawn. Melisandre threw her hands skyward. Flame erupted from her palms and soared along the snow, forming a barrier of swirling red. The walkers raised spears. Frost exploded where fire licked. One screamed, crystalline voice shattering air, hurling javelin of black ice. It streaked toward Rhaegar. Jaime leapt, swatting it aside with Valyrian blade. Ice shattered in sparks of rime. Arthur would be proud, Rhaegar thought, but now only sword would speak. He lunged, Dawnfire singing out. Obsidian dust woven in its steel blazed red when it cut the night. He swung, meeting a walker's ice sword. The clash sounded like bells cracking. Dawnfire held, edge biting deeper. Frost steamed where blades met. With a second stroke, he sheared through crystal armor. The walker staggered, body fissuring like glass before shattering into a drift of ice shards. Melisandre chanted, flame twisting into whips that lashed at another walker, slowing it but not destroying. Benjen hurled dragonglass spear. Tip punched through icy throat. Creature dissolved into snow. 2 remained. 1 darted toward the hut where the girl slept. Rhaegar bolted, snow churning. Jaime met him halfway, the 2 Kingsguard exchanging wordless nod. Jaime veered left, intercepting the walker's spear. Rhaegar barreled straight, shoulder slamming into the creature. Skidded, hissed. Dawnfire plunged through chest, erupting in burst of crackling steam. Ice shards peppered Rhaegar's cloak as the wall. Kerr died. The last stared across field at Melisandre, who stood ringed by fire swirling like a cyclone. It lifted hand. Frost swept outward, dimming flames. Melisandre's ruby flared, a heartbeat of scarlet. Rhaegar sprinted, but before he reached them, the walker stepped back into shadow, melting into night. Gone. Silence fell. Snow drifted in swirling clouds across the ruined clearing. Rangers exhaled, ragged. Dawnfire's edge glimmered, red lines pulsing, then faded. It retreats to bring more, Corrin muttered. Rhaegar sheathed the blade. Then we take the girl and the branch and ride hard for the wall. They burned the village before leaving. Wood and flesh alike, pyres dancing high into moonlit sky, smoke wreathing the ancient roots. Melisandre watched flames devour snow, eyes reflecting orange like twin torches. When embers died, she bent, scooped a handful of ash, and smeared it across her brow. The Lord of Light blesses this place, she said, but night will claim it again. Back at Castle Black, maesters recorded every detail. The weirwood branch was set upright in the yard before the gate, mute witness to tests. At dawn, a captured white hand still twitching an iron cage was carried near the branch. Twitches slowed, then ceased entirely when the gray-white fingers brushed bark. Brothers stared, crossing themselves. The old gods, silent for centuries, had spoken through silence. Rhaegar wrote letters until his quill hand cramped, commanding shipments of weirwood saplings from Skagos and the Wolfswood, instructing builders to carve buttress arches along the wall, each arch entwined with obsidian mortar and lit by flame sconces. He dubbed the plan the Red Wine Lattice, for it would weave red sap and red fire into white ice. A raven arrived from Dragonstone. Gendry's second sword, Nightsinger, forged true, edge sharper, obsidian veins thicker. Rhaegar ordered 10 more, but smelting such iron and dragonglass demanded dragon-fired heat neither smith nor bellows could conjure. Melisandre proposed sanctifying forges with wildfire. Jaime grimaced, recalling King's Landing's near ruin. The debate was tabled. News from the south rode cold on raven wings. At Planky Town, the combined fleet of Stormlands and Dornish spears had met Yunkai's ragged armada. Stannis' flagships, Warhammer and Loyal Storm, spearheaded the charge at sunrise, crashing lines before the elephants could disembark. Arthur Dayne led boarding parties, dawn-cleaving chains that moored siege towers. The sea turned red. Victorious, they burned supply galleys and captured their infamous pale firepots of gaseous toxin. Yet Oberyn Martell fell, pierced by crossbow bolts somewhere amid smoke. Alive but poisoned with myrish arrows tipped in manticore venom. A maester raced by Sandsteed to Sunspear with antidote unknown if it would reach in time. Rhaegar clutched the parchment. Grief and anger warred in his breast. He owed Oberyn more than camaraderie. The Viper's laughter had softened court, and his spears had bled for the throne. Rhaegar penned response. A vow to send Archmaester Marwyn and vats of jade antidote north at once, and a personal promise to ride to Dorne once the wall stood ready. He spent that night alone in the king's tower chamber, harp across his knees. Fingers plucked uncertain chords, melodies frayed at edges, unraveling like woven straw in rain. At last he set the instrument aside and stared into hearth flames dancing around blackened logs. In those tongues of fire he glimpsed shapes, men and women locked in shifting embrace of ice and flame, iron crowns melting, Red stars split in two. He rubbed eyes. The visions lingered. A knock on door. Ser Jaime entered, cloak dusted with new snow. Rangers sighted movement 5 miles east, he reported. Shapes vanish near the gorge. Corin rides to trace. Rhaegar rose.
Igo kropka.
Your grace. Prepare the horses. Jaime bowed, resigned. Minutes later, they galloped from the gate with Benjen and 10 rangers. Moonlight painted forest silver blue. At the gorge, they dismounted, descending icy ridge by rope. Below, water trickled black between frost-rimmed stones. Tracks of the dead led into cave-mouthed Tardark. Rhaegar drew dawnfire. Red veins glowed faint. He advanced first. The cave sprawled labyrinthine. Crystals of frost clung to walls like calcified thorns. Far within, an icy chamber opened around a stone dais. Atop lay a man. No, something once a man. Frozen within translucent ice, armor rusted to bones. Across the chest rested a sword of pale steel, pommel shaped like stylized sunburst. First Ranger, Benjen whispered. Or King, Jaime murmured. Melisandre's voice drifted from behind. She had followed unbidden. This is memory of men who knelt tonight, a promise waiting to wake. Rhaegar stepped forward, blade raised. As dawnfire approached the ice coffin, red glow intensified. The frost hissed, retreating like mist from torch. Cracks spidered, with a final pop shards cascaded. The corpse within exhaled a cloud of black vapor and crumbled to dust. Sword clanged, free. Its pale edge shimmered with runes unknown. Rhaegar picked it up. The metal felt colder than ice, yet pulsed faint warmth. When dawnfire touched it, sparks of white and red danced. 2 halves of prophecy? Rhaegar trembled. Light and shadow, Melisandre breathed. Twin flames to forge one dawn. He sheathed the pale sword, naming it Snowfong in his mind, and turned. Seal this cave. We cannot risk its secret. Back at Castle Black, Maester studied the blade under glass. Its metal was not Valyrian but something older. Starlight in steel form. Combined with dragonglass, it might create a weapon deadly and unbreakable. Plans to forge Dawnfang, third blade, were sketched. Yet forging required dragonfire, real dragonfire. Rhaegar felt thrumming beneath his ribs like wings beating. The dream of waking stone dragons returned, calling him to Dragonstone. He sent Raven to Elia. Gather every pyromancer, every alchemist. Meet me. He would ride south once watch was ready. Before leaving, he visited the Weirwood Grove beyond Shadow Tower. Under crimson leaves he knelt, laid dawnfire across knees, and spoke aloud to old gods and new. I did not seek crowns or prophecies. I sought songs. Now songs seek me. Grant me strength to hold them. Wind sighed through leaves, scattering red across snow like flakes of blood. In the hush, he thought he heard children's laughter somewhere deep beneath the roots. The ride to Winterfell was swift. There he embraced Lyanna in snow-dusted courtyard, told her of Oberyn's Wound, the Sword of Starlight, the Cave of Memory. She listened, jaw set. You chase omens across continents, she said. While sparrows conspire in your streets, I will send word to Tywin to quell them. Tywin quells with gold or steel, never with love, she warned. Rhaegar cupped her cheek. When the dead march, even sparrows will seek shelter beneath dragon wings. She sighed, leaning into his touch. They spent that night in quiet tenderness before hearth glow, 2 souls finding warmth in brief stillness. In early hours, she pressed a dagger into his palm, its hilt carved like crossing direwolf and dragon. Carry the north with you, she said. He kissed her and rode at dawn. Southward, the road slogged through rain-swollen moors. At Moat Cailin, he met Tyrion Lannister, arrived with small retinue of mountain clansmen in tow. Uggo, Shagga, and other fierce warriors clad in furs. I thought you might appreciate allies who fear nothing but soap, Tyrion quipped, swinging down from his shaggy horse. Also, my father wished me to deliver intelligence in person. The faith militant consolidates at Old Town. Septon Maribald now styles himself High Shepherd of the Dawn, claiming you have enthralled the realm with false miracles. Rhaegar sighed. And what does your father plan? Nothing overt. Yet some lions whisper the faith's rabble could bleed northern levies and Dornish spears alike, leaving rock preeminent. Tyrion's mismatched eyes glinted. I think it folly. I prefer living in a realm not frozen stiff. Rhaegar smiled despite fatigue. Then join me at Dragonstone. A dragon's heat may thaw even Lannister gold. Excellent, Tyrion said. I'll bring wine. He gestured to a mule cart stacked with barrels. They shared laughter under sullen sky. In the riverlands they passed fields where new shoots struggled through frostburnt soil. Blackwood banners waved from burned manors now under rebuild, thanks to coin from King's Landing. At Harrenhal they lingered one night in Crack Tower where Rhaegar once crowned Lyanna queen of love and beauty, years yet a lifetime ago. He stood in broken solar, staring at churned clouds through roof fissure, and whispered apology to ghosts. By the time Dragonstone's jagged silhouette cut the horizon, storms gathered. Lightning forked behind basalt towers shaped like talons. On the beach, Elia and Marwyn awaited, cloaks whipping. Elia hugged him fiercely, voice hoarse. Oberyn lived, antidote arrived, yet he lay weakened. You look older, she said gently, fingertips tracing new worry lines. King's age in moons, he replied. They clasped hands. Within the cavernous doorbelly of Dragonmont's throat, pyromancers tended roaring furnaces. The air shimmered with heat and tang of brimstone. Gendry bowed, face streaked with soot. The forges hold, he said, but to melt starlight steel, we need hotter flame. Marwyn produced scroll describing ancient Valyrian technique. Powder of ground sea dragon bone mixed with wildfire and whispered spells of old Giscari. Melisandre translated incantations. They prepared crucible atop basalt dais beneath vent where volcanic breath hissed. At midnight, under new moon, Rhaegar placed dawnfire and snowfong in crucible, added slurry of dragonglass dust and sea dragon ash. Melisandre began chant. Pyromancers lit wildfire. Green flames roared, turning white-hot. The metals glowed, first red, then sun-white. Runes melted into liquid light swirling like twin serpents entwined. Above, thunder cracked. Dragonstone trembled. Molten metal poured into long mold carved with sigils of sun, wolf, dragon, and burning heart. When the roar subsided, silence rang. Days passed as blade cooled, quenched alternately in seawater and oil of shade blossoms. When Gendry finally withdrew it, everyone gasped. The sword was slender, slightly curved, its surface rippling with intertwining veins of crimson and pale silver. Edges shimmered faint red even in darkness. They named it Dawnzinger. Rhaegar took the blade in gloved hand. It felt alive, warm, vibrating softly like distant harp string. He slashed air. Blade hummed, leaving faint trail of ember sparks that winked out slowly. Marwyn nodded. Dragonsteel, he whispered, forged anew. Word of the forging spread like wildfire in wiser circles. In Old Town, archmesters argued omens until dawn. In Sunspear, Oberyn laughed weakly and asked for one just the same. In Pike, Balon Greyjoy ordered priests to drown ravens before they could speak of dragon magic. In Pentos, Magister Illyrio wrote again, the dragon now wields the dawn, yet power draws shadows. Across the sea in the ruins of Valyria, a hooded figure surveyed smoking crater where once a temple stood, whispering to stone about stolen flame. In Winterfell's crypts, the statues of Stark kings seemed, to watchful eyes, to lean forward listening. Rhaegar returned to King's Landing with Dawnzinger strapped across back. The city greeted him with torches lining streets. Festival of Lights Oberyn had conceived months past now realized under Elaya's orders. Lanterns of bright glass hung from every arch. Children wore crowns of paper stars. Even sparrows joined processions, singing hymns for dawn. It was as though realm exhaled a breath held too long. Yet at the feast in the throne room, Tywin approached, face granite. High Shepherd marches north with 20,000 zealots, he said, voice low. Half from Reach peasants, half from crownlands alike. If they converge with discontented lords, we face fracture. Rhaegar felt the weight of Donzinger on his spine. Send envoys offering grain and audience. They want righteousness, not bread. Then we show them righteousness stands with dawn, not dusk. He convened council next morning. Plans to ride south with small host of trusted knights, confront the shepherd at Bitterbridge where armies could meet without burning villages. Elia would remain regent. Tywin, Mace, and Varys to maintain order. Jaime commanded city watch. Lyanna insisted on accompanying. Rhaegar refused, but she arrived at gate in armor, direwolf-helmed, refusing to be left. He relented. On green fields of Bitterbridge they met the shepherd's host. Ragged ranks of farmhands carrying pitchforks, septon robes over chainmail, banners of white star on black field. At their center, the shepherd, gaunt man with burning eyes, preached from atop shabby wagon. The king consorts with a witch of shadow, forges blades in demon fire, defiles the seven with wolf and snake. Cast him down. Rhaegar rode forward alone, Donzinger glowing faint at hip. If I am false, he called, voice carrying across field. Let the seven judge me, but if I stand in light, let us kneel together and pray for dawn. He dismounted, kneeled on grass, sword laid across open palms. Silence rippled. The shepherd faltered. Some followers knelt uncertainly. A cloud passed, sun spilled golden upon the scene. Donzinger's veins glowed bright red, reflections dancing. A hush fell, even birds stilled. Suddenly an arrow hissed, loosed from unknown bow deep in zealot lines, aimed at the kneeling king. Lyanna's shout rang as she spurred forward, shield raised. Arrow shattered against iron rim. Chaos erupted. Zealot officers shouted, but many peasants dropped arms, confused. Rhaegar rose slowly, sorrow heavy. You would strike a kneeling man? The shepherd backed, face wild. Before battle could ignite, grandfatherly voice sounded. Septon Barth, elder of the faith's most devout, stepped from ranks, raising crystal staff. Blood shall not water these fields. He strode to Rhaegar, dropped to knee. One by one, many followed. Shepherd screamed, drawing curved dagger. Barth's attendants seized him. The host fragmented. Some fled, others surrendered. Later, intent, Barth bowed to Rhaegar. The faith forgot mercy, he said. Let mercy restore it. Rhaegar appointed Barth High Septon, pardoned zealots, ordering them to rebuild burned septs in Dorne. Shepherd was sent to silent sisters for life of penance. Some said too kind, others wise. The march home was greeted by cheers, yet nights remained restless. Rhaegar saw eyes of blue in dreams, comets falling, oceans boiling. He knew victories on grass could not halt winter's jaws. Crowfoot umber rode from last hearth. First snows already knee-deep, though high summer should linger. Ravens died in flight, freezing mid-wing. At Sea Dragon Point, herring washed ashore, eyes white with frost. In Dorne, cellars of Sunspear chilled enough to keep ice unmelted in goblets. The long night crept south months ahead of lore. Rhaegar called Great Council a final time, at Trident's ruby-specked banks where war had once ended. Lords came cloaked in furs though day sun glared. Rhaegar raised Donzinger, flame reflecting in their eyes. Winter rides sooner than we feared. Our petty quarrels are embers in gale. We must march north, every house, every creed. An army of dawn. Mace Tyrell pledged 50,000. Balon Greyjoy, in surprising letter, offered longships to ferry grain if royal pardon for previous raids. Rhaegar agreed, eyes wary. Doran Martell limped forth, leaning on cane, swore his spears though still mourning brother. Stannis returned triumphant, bent knee again, loyal as iron. Even petty robber knights joined. Mobilization began. Blacksmiths forging dragonglass arrowheads by thousands. Lumber camps felling oaks for siege wickers. Alchemists brewing wildfire for last resort. In the Red Keep, Gendry crafted dragonglass-lined armor for Rhaegar, lattice of red and black scales light yet strong. Tyrion oversaw ballista design launching obsidian bolts. As first leaves turned gold, the army of dawn marched. Spearheads of Stark wolves, Arryn falcons, Tyrell roses, Lannister lions, Baratheon stags, Martell suns, Targaryen dragons. Banners filled horizon like a blooming field. Rhaegar rode at the fore between Lyanna on grey courser and Jaime cloaked white. Donzinger rested upon saddle horn, its glow brighter with each league north. Behind, Melisandre traveled in wicker palanquin crowned with flame bowl, chanting to fire. Above, sky stretched steel gray, pregnant with snow though only frost moon hung. They crossed the neck on causeways half-flooded, planks ice-slick. At White Harbor, Wyman Manderley's fleet ferried grain, while mummers sang new ballad, King of Dawn and Wolf Queen fair. Children lined docks throwing wreaths of ice mint. Rhaegar smiled but reminded them war loomed. Outside Winterfell trenches carved, stockades raised. The castle became mustering point where smiths hammered day and night. Rhaegar embraced his children. Rhaenys now sparring with Arya under Sirio's eye, Aegon Elder poring over maps with Maester Luwin, Aegon Younger chasing pups round kennel. He knelt to them. When I ride, remember the song is only beginning. They nodded, brave but frightened. 3 days later, with full moon's pale fire above, the army of Dawn marched beyond the wall. Hundreds of fires dotted camps each night, lit by weirwood arches hauled in pieces and erected. Behind lines, Tyrion's ballistae were assembled atop sledges. Gendry's forge caravan trailed smoke, still crafting on move. The first battle came at Frostfang Pass. Blizzards roared so fierce men could not see tip of spear, but Donzinger shone like beacon. Whites charged in waves, a sea of silent rage. Obsidian arrows hissed, dawn fire slashed. Snowfang wielded by Benjen cut arcs of frost. Melisandre's flames burned hot, but sometimes even fire sputtered in howling wind. Then Night's King appeared, tall, crowned in horns of ice, eyes glowing abyssal blue. He rode undead elk, flanked by walkers. At his signal, dark aurora spiraled overhead and a chill beyond cold swept ranks. Men froze where they stood. Rhaegar forced Donzinger high. Blade flared brilliant white-red, casting sphere of warmth. He advanced, Lyanna at flank, Jaime on other side. Night's King dismounted, drew great sword of shadow. Battle around them stilled as if world held breath. They clashed, Donzinger against Voidblade. Sparks of blue and red burst. Each strike thundered like mountains breaking. Rhaegar's arm shook, but every note of his harpist youth guided blade in graceful arcs. Lyanna dashed forward, slashing with northern dagger carved from starlit iron. Jaime parried walkers, scattering ice limbs. Night's King roared. Soundless roar felt rather than heard. Swung downward. Donzinger caught, red veins crackling. Ice spread along blade. Red fire fired back. Rhaegar pivoted, driving pommel into chest. Ice armor fractured. Lyanna plunged dagger into breach. Frost exploded. Night's King stumbled. In final motion, Rhaegar raised Dawnfire in other hand. Twin swords crossing, forming blazing cross of red and white. He thrust both into Night's King's heart. For heartbeat nothing. Then fissures webbed, light spilling. The figure shattered. Ice storm swirling upward into night sky that screamed like dying storm. Whites collapsed, strings cut. Silence fell, broken by ragged cheers. Snow stopped. Clouds parted, revealing dawn streaking horizon pink. First sunrise in weeks.
Yet Rhaegar
did not cheer. He stared at shards of ice melting, felt Donzinger pulse then soften. He knew battle won, war not yet. Deep in lands of always winter greater powers stirred. Ancient cold, nameless. But hope burned brighter. He turned to army, voice hoarse. Dawn rises. We march on. And the men and women of 7 kingdoms lifted battered banners and followed. Their footfalls beating rhythm that echoed through ages. A song not of crowns or prophecy, but of unity born in darkest night.